I thought buying a house would be the beginning of a new, peaceful chapter in our lives. My wife Emily and I had been searching for months, looking at countless listings, visiting open houses every weekend. Nothing felt right. Too small, too expensive, too close to the city, too far from work. And then we found this one, a beautiful, spacious house at the end of a quiet, tree-lined road. It was old but well-maintained, with a large backyard and plenty of space for us to start a family. The price was shockingly reasonable, almost too good to be true. The real estate agent assured us it was simply because the owners were eager to sell. We didn't ask too many questions. Looking back, we should have. The first few nights were uneventful, aside from the usual creaks and groans of an old house settling. At least, that's what I told myself. Emily was the first to notice something strange. "Have you ever felt like someone was watching you?" she asked one evening while we were unpacking. I laughed it off, telling her it was just the feeling of being in a new place, adjusting to unfamiliar surroundings. But as the days passed, I started feeling it too. That eerie sensation of unseen eyes, of something just beyond my line of sight. Then, the noises started. At first, they were faint, soft footsteps at night, the sound of furniture moving when no one was in the room. One night, while Emily was in the kitchen washing dishes, she suddenly froze. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. I turned down the TV and listened. A slow, dragging sound echoed from above us, as if something heavy was being pulled across the attic floor. My stomach tightened. "It's probably just an old pipe shifting," I said, trying to sound unconcerned. But deep down, I didn't believe it. One evening, I decided to check the attic. Armed with a flashlight, I pulled down the creaky ladder and climbed up, dust swirling in the beam of my light. The attic was empty, just a few forgotten boxes covered in years of dust. I was about to leave when something caught my eye, a single footprint in the dust, fresh and unmistakable. My blood ran cold. Someone, or something, had been up here recently. Emily woke up screaming a few nights later. She swore she saw a figure standing in the doorway watching us. I jumped out of bed, heart pounding, and turned on the light. The doorway was empty. I searched the entire house, checking every door and window. Everything was locked, except for one. The basement door was open just slightly. I was certain I had locked it before bed. The basement was the one part of the house that unsettled me. It was cold, unnaturally so, and the air always smelled damp and stale. I stepped down carefully, my flashlight beam shaking slightly. As I reached the bottom, I noticed something strange. A door in the far corner, one I hadn't noticed before. It was old, its wood warped with age, and it had a rusted lock on it. The strangest part? The lock was on our side. I pressed my ear against the door, my breath shallow. At first there was nothing. Then, ever so faintly, I heard it. Soft, shallow breathing on the other side. I ran up the stairs, slamming the basement door shut and locking it. Emily saw the fear in my eyes. "What is it?" she asked. I didn't know how to answer. The next day, I decided to look into the history of the house. What I found made my stomach turn. The previous owner, an elderly man, had vanished without a trace. Before him, another family had lived there, but they had moved out suddenly, leaving behind most of their belongings. Newspaper clippings from decades ago mentioned strange occurrences, voices at night, shadows moving in the halls. One article even had a photo of a family standing in front of the house, but in the upstairs window, barely visible, was a shadowy figure staring out. That night was the worst. Emily and I lay awake, too afraid to sleep. Then, at exactly 3 a.m., the bedroom door creaked open. A deep guttural growl filled the room. The temperature dropped instantly, our breath visible in the air. The blanket was yanked off the bed, and before we could react, something moved in the darkness. It was tall, its limbs too long, its face obscured in shadow. Emily let out a blood-curdling scream as she was dragged toward the door by an unseen force. I lunged forward, grabbing her just in time. With all the strength I had, I pulled her back, and we ran. We didn't stop running. We barely had time to grab our keys before we were out the door, speeding away from the house, never looking back. We left everything behind: furniture, clothes, even our wedding photos. I didn't care. I just needed to get Emily to safety. By morning, we were at a motel, exhausted and shaken. I made the decision right then. We were never going back. I didn't care if it meant losing everything. As we sat in silence, trying to process what had happened, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from our home security system. Emotion alert. My hands trembled as I opened the app. The front door, which I had locked, was now wide open. And then, the camera captured it. A shadowy figure standing at the top of the stairs, staring directly into the lens. I turned off my phone. That house, whatever was inside it, wasn't our problem anymore. But sometimes, in the dead of night, I still wake up, heart racing, with the feeling that something followed us, that somewhere in the darkness it's still watching. Some houses aren't meant to be lived in,